The Georgia sun beat down like hot metal on the Whitmore plantation in the summer of 1841. The cotton fields went on forever toward the horizon, and the air was so thick it was hard to breathe. Among the rows of white cotton, 43 enslaved men and women worked with the automatic movements of people who had learned long ago that staying alive meant staying quiet. Isaiah was 26 years old, but his hands looked like they belonged to a 50-year-old man. His back had crisscross scars from past punishments. Each scar was a lesson that Master Edmund Whitmore thought he needed to teach. Isaiah had learned to keep his eyes looking down, his voice quiet, and his movements careful, but he had also learned something else. He had learned to watch, to listen, and to remember. The trouble started on a Tuesday morning when Thomas, Master Whitmore's 15-year-old son, rode his horse too close to the field workers. The horse got scared by a snake, stood up on its back legs, and threw the boy hard onto the ground. Isaiah had been the closest person. Without thinking, he dropped his cotton sack and ran to help, pulling Thomas away from the horse's kicking legs. The boy's arm was broken, and his face was pale from shock. Master Whitmore only saw a slave touching his son. By noon, Isaiah stood in the yard behind the main house with his wrists tied, while Whitmore walked back and forth in front of him like an actor getting ready to perform. The overseer, a very thin man named Cyrus Webb with teeth stained from tobacco, stood ready with the punishment tools. "You put your hands on my boy," Whitmore said in a calm voice that meant violence was already decided. "You think because you can read a few words that you are something more than property." Isaiah said nothing. He had made the mistake of letting Thomas see him reading a thrown-away newspaper months ago. The boy had told his father, thinking it was funny. Whitmore had not thought it was funny. Before we go deeper into Isaiah's story, one of the darkest chapters in Georgia's history that official records tried to erase, I need to ask you something. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And if this is your first time on our channel, subscribe now, because what you're about to hear is a story that the Whitmore family spent generations trying to bury, but memory refused to forget. 2 days, Whitmore announced loud enough for the gathered slaves to hear. Dig the hole. Webb and 2 other men brought shovels. They dug in the red Georgia clay behind the barn, out of sight from the main road but visible from the slave quarters. A deliberate choice. The hole was 4 feet deep, just wide enough for a man's body. They forced Isaiah into it. His arms were tied behind his back before they lowered him down, the ropes cutting into his wrists. The dirt was packed tight around him until only his head stuck up above the ground, his neck at an awkward angle, forced to look up at the burning sky. 2 days, Whitmore repeated, crouching beside Isaiah's head. No water, no food. You'll learn your place, boy. And if the sun doesn't teach you, maybe whatever comes in the dark will. The other enslaved people were forced to watch before being sent back to work. Isaiah saw the terror in their eyes, the helplessness. He saw Rebecca, the woman who secretly taught him to read, her face wet with silent tears. As the sun began to set, the plantation became quiet in an uneasy way. Isaiah could hear the sounds of evening, the overseer's dog barking, the noise of dishes from the kitchen, the distant singing from the slave quarters. But as darkness fell completely, other sounds came out. Sounds that made Isaiah's blood run cold despite the heat still coming from the baked earth around his neck. Something was moving in the darkness beyond the barn. Something that breathed with a wet, rattling sound. Something that had been waiting. The Georgia night came without mercy. One moment the sky held the last purple traces of sunset. The next it was black as tar, with only a thin slice of moon that gave no comfort. Isaiah's neck hurt from the unnatural angle, his shoulders screaming from the position of his tied arms beneath the earth. Thirst came first. His tongue felt thick, his throat tight. He had worked the fields in August heat before and knew the dangerous path of dehydration. The headache, the confusion, the way your body turns against itself. But he had never faced it unable to move, buried, helpless. The sound started around midnight. First came the familiar crickets, an owl, the rustle of some small animal in the brush. But then something else. Footsteps, too heavy to be a raccoon, too deliberate to be a deer. They circled the barn, staying just beyond the reach of moonlight. Who's there? Isaiah's voice came out as a croak. The footsteps stopped. In the silence that followed, Isaiah heard breathing. Not animal breathing, but human, ragged and wet, like lungs filled with fluid. A figure came out from behind the barn. In the darkness, Isaiah could only see a silhouette, tall and unnaturally thin, moving with a jerking, broken walk. It approached slowly, and as it got closer, the moonlight showed details that made Isaiah's heart pound against his ribs. The figure was a man, or had been. His skin was the color of old leather, pulled tight over bones that stuck out at wrong angles. One eye was milky white, the other missing completely. His clothes were rags, rotted and stained, and when he opened his mouth, there were no teeth, only blackness. "You see me now," the figure whispered, his voice like wind through a crack in a wall. "First one to see me in 7 years." Isaiah tried to pull away, but the earth held him tight. "What are you?" "What they made me," the figure said, crouching down beside Isaiah's head. Up close, the smell was overpowering, rotten damp earth and something else. Something that reminded Isaiah of the slaughterhouse. "Samuel, that was my name, Samuel, before Master Whitmore's father put me in the ground like you. But he left me there. 3 days became 4. 4 became forever. You're dead," Isaiah whispered. "Am I?" Samuel tilted his head, the movement coming with a sound like breaking sticks. "Or am I just what's left when they take everything else? I walked these fields, boy. Picked their cotton, sang their songs, bore their whip. And when I tried to run, old Master John Whitmore made an example. Buried me to my neck just like you. Said he'd let me out after 2 days. He lied." Samuel's remaining eye fixed on Isaiah. "This land won't let me rest. Too much blood in the soil, too much suffering. It holds us here, some of us. The ones who died wrong, the ones who died with rage still burning." A scream built in Isaiah's throat, but Samuel held up one skeletal hand. "You scream. They'll think you've gone mad from the heat. They'll leave you here longer or worse." Throughout the night, Samuel talked. He spoke of the other ghosts that walked the plantation. Martha, who drowned herself in the well rather than see her daughter sold. Jacob, who had been beaten to death for looking at Whitmore's sister. Esther, who had been worked to death while pregnant. "They're all here," Samuel said, trapped between worlds, witnesses to an endless cycle of cruelty. "They're afraid," Samuel said as the sky began to lighten. "The white folks. They know what they're doing is evil. They know it in their bones, even if they won't say it. That's why they jump at shadows, why they sleep with guns. They know that one day all this suffering will come due." As dawn broke, Samuel began to fade. "I'll be back tonight, and I'll bring the others. We're going to show you things, Isaiah. Things you need to see, things you need to know." He leaned close, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're going to make them pay." The sun rose with revenge, turning the Georgia clay around Isaiah's neck into a slow cooking oven. By mid-morning, the heat was unbearable. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes, but he couldn't wipe it away. His lips cracked and split. Every breath felt like breathing fire. Master Whitmore came to check on his work around 1000, with Thomas beside him. The boy's arm was in a sling, and he looked uncomfortable, his eyes looking away from Isaiah's face. "How are you doing, boy?" Whitmore asked cheerfully, as if asking about the weather. He wore a cream-colored suit, despite the heat. A wide hat shaded his face. Everything about him showed comfort, choice, and power. Isaiah said nothing. His tongue was too swollen to speak. "Chat got your tongue." Whitmore chuckled. "Thomas here wanted to bring you water. Can you imagine? I had to explain to him that mercy to your kind is cruelty to civilization itself. You must learn through suffering. It's the only language you understand." Thomas shifted his weight, his face red. "Father, I only meant, quiet, boy. This is a lesson for you. Too sentimentality is weakness. These people aren't like us. They don't feel pain the way we do. It's science." Isaiah watched the man's mouth move, saying lies that men like him told themselves to sleep at night. Behind Whitmore, in the shadow of the barn, Isaiah saw something that made his heart skip. Samuel stood there, and he wasn't alone. 3 other figures stood with him. 2 women and a man, all showing the marks of violent deaths, all watching Whitmore with expressions of pure hatred. "I expect you'll be much more cooperative tomorrow," Whitmore said, turning to leave. "Assuming you survive the night. Webb tells me there are wild dogs prowling the property. Would be a shame if they found you, helpless as you are." The day went on like a nightmare. Isaiah drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind playing tricks. Sometimes he thought he saw his mother, who had been sold away when he was 7. Sometimes he heard singing in languages he didn't know. Around midday, Rebecca appeared, moving quickly from the direction of the fields. She knelt beside him, her face tight with fear and determination. "Only got a moment," she whispered, pulling out a wet cloth from her apron. She pressed it to his lips, and Isaiah sucked desperately at the moisture. It was barely anything, but it was life itself. "They're watching from the house. Can't stay." "But Isaiah, listen to me. Old Moses, he says you're marked now. Says the spirits have chosen you for something. He can see them around you, same as his grandmother could. Says you need to survive this because there's work that needs doing." "What work?" Isaiah managed to croak. Rebecca's eyes were fierce. "The work of justice, the work of making them understand that we're not beasts. We're not property. We're human, and we remember everything. but she glanced toward the house nervously. I have to go. But tonight, whatever happens, whatever you see, don't be afraid. The dead can't hurt you. Only the living can do that. She was gone as quickly as she'd come. The afternoon was worse than the morning. The heat became like a hallucination. Isaiah's vision swam with spots and shadows. Webb appeared later holding a tin cup of water. He made a show of drinking deeply, then poured the rest onto the ground, inches from Isaiah's face. Shame to waste good water. But master's orders are you get nothing. Webb crouched down, his breath reeking of tobacco. You know what I think? I think you're one of the dangerous ones. Too smart for your own good. But there ain't no chance, boy. This is the way of things. You accept it, you might survive. Isaiah looked at Webb with eyes that had seen dead men walking. We all die. Question is what we leave behind. As the sun finally began to set, Isaiah felt something shift in the air. The temperature dropped slightly, and with it came a sense of waiting. The spirits were returning, and this time they had something to show him, something that would change everything. Twilight brought relief from the sun, but no comfort. Isaiah's body had moved beyond pain into a numb, dreamlike state where the boundaries between real and unreal blurred. The first stars appeared overhead, cold and distant as the justice he'd never known. Samuel emerged from the shadows as if stepping through a curtain. But tonight he brought companions. 7 figures appeared around Isaiah's buried form. Each one was proof of the plantation's hidden history of violence. They need to show you, Samuel said, his voice carrying authority. So you understand, so you remember. The nearest spirit was a woman of perhaps 30, her neck bent at an impossible angle. She knelt beside Isaiah, and when she spoke, her voice had the quality of wind through empty rooms. Martha, she said, I was cook in the big house for 8 years. Master John Edmund's father, he had particular tastes. When I refused him one time too many, he had me hanged from that oak tree. Told everyone I'd stolen silver. My daughter watched. She was 6 years old. Martha's eyes, though dead, still held tears. She's sold now, gone west. I pray she doesn't remember her mama's face, purple and swollen, swinging in the wind. Another spirit came forward. A young man with his chest caved in, Jacob, kicked to death by horses. Master John said I spooked them, but truth was I'd been teaching other folks their letters. Can't have educated slaves. Might start getting ideas about freedom. One by one they came. Esther, whose pregnant belly still showed, worked to death in the fields. A child no more than 8 named Peter, beaten to death for breaking a plate. Daniel, whose face bore the marks of a savage beating. A former driver who tried to run. 16 years I've walked this plantation, Daniel said. They caught me with dogs. What they did, he touched his ruined face. This was mercy compared to what came after. The spirits formed a circle around Isaiah, and the air itself seemed to thicken with their collective pain. You see us, Samuel said. You're the first living soul in years who can. That gift, that curse comes from your mother's line. She had it too. Could see the dead, talk to them. It's why they sold her away. Master John got spooked when she knew things she shouldn't. Isaiah's mind reeled. What things? His first wife, Martha said. Slow, made to look like fever. Master John wanted younger stock, so he fed her arsenic in her tea. Little by little over 6 months. Your mother saw the spirit lingering, told some of the other women. Word got to Master John. 3 days later, your mama was sold. The revelation cut through Isaiah's delirium like a knife. His mother hadn't been sold for poor work. She'd been sold for seeing too much. Why show me this? Isaiah asked. Why now? Samuel crouched down, his remaining eye blazing. Because you got a choice to make, Isaiah. You can survive this, come out of that hole tomorrow broken like they want, meek and dead inside. Or you can survive it angry. You can become something Master Edmund Whitmore never planned for. What's that? A reckoning. The spirits began to show him things then, visions that burned into his mind. He saw the layout of the big house, every room, every passage. He saw where Whitmore kept his money, his weapons, his secrets. He saw the patrol routes of the overseers, the weak points in the plantation's defenses. But more than that, they showed him the truth about the land itself, the soil that drank blood and suffering. They showed him the paths of the Underground Railroad, the safe houses marked with symbols only the initiated could read. They showed him allies he didn't know he had. Knowledge is power, Samuel said. They've kept you ignorant by design, but we can give you what they tried to hide. We've seen everything, heard everything. Now that knowledge is yours. As the night deepened, the spirits shared more. Every hidden stash, every secret, every weakness in Whitmore's empire. The world thinks we're forgotten, Samuel said as dawn approached. But the dead don't forget. We can't. Every injustice, every cruelty, every name, we hold them all. And now through you we can act. What do you want me to do? Survive tomorrow, Samuel said simply. Let them pull you from the ground. Be meek for a while. But remember everything we've shown you. And when the time is right, make them answer for all of it. The second night began with agony. Isaiah's body was shutting down. He could feel it in the way his heartbeat had become irregular, the way his vision darkened at the edges. 40 hours without water in Georgia summer heat should have killed him. The spirits arrived earlier tonight, gathering as the sun touched the horizon. But the atmosphere had changed. Where before they had been teachers, now they seemed urgent, almost anxious. Master Edmund's watching from the house, Samuel said. He thinks you'll be dead by morning. He's already told Webb to dig the grave, dump you in it, tell the others you died of defiance. He's done it before, 3 times. Men who wouldn't break. The records say they ran away. The earth knows different. Isaiah tried to speak but could only manage a whisper. Can't much longer. I know, Samuel said. That's why tonight is different. Tonight we give you something more than knowledge. Tonight we give you a choice that'll damn your soul or save it. Hard to say which. The other spirits drew closer. An ancient woman Isaiah hadn't seen before appeared, her form flickering like a candle in wind. There are old ways, she said. African ways brought over in the holds of ships, ways to call on powers that don't care about white man's laws or God. Dangerous ways. Desperate ways. Voodoo, said another spirit. Conjure. The white folk mock it, call it superstition. But they lock their doors at night and nail horseshoes over their thresholds just the same. They know there are forces in this world that don't bow to their mastery. We can help you survive, Samuel said bluntly. We can give you strength that ain't natural. Keep you alive through tomorrow. But it comes with a price. You open yourself to us, to the spirits of this place. You'll carry us with you. Our rage, our memories, our hunger for justice. You won't just be Isaiah anymore. You'll be a vessel for vengeance. Daniel added, you survive this, you walk out of that hole tomorrow and you'll have power. Power to see things others can't. Power to move through shadows. Power to hurt the ones who hurt us down. The ancient woman leaned close. But such power corrupts, child. Man starts out seeking justice, ends up becoming the monster he fought against. You take this gift, you walk a razor's edge between righteousness and damnation. Isaiah closed his eyes. He thought of his mother, sold away for seeing too much. He thought of all the names he'd learned, all the unmarked graves, all the children sold away, all the women violated, all the men broken and discarded. He thought of Master Whitmore sipping cool water on his porch, while Isaiah died by inches in the dirt. What must I do? He whispered. The spirits released a collective sigh. Samuel reached out with his skeletal hand and placed it on Isaiah's head. It felt cold and real and heavy as an oath. You must accept us, Samuel said. All of us. Our pain becomes your pain. Our anger becomes your fuel. Our deaths become your purpose. Say the words, I am witness. I am memory. I am the dead come due. Isaiah's lips moved. I am witness. I am memory. I am the dead come due. The change was instant. Energy poured into him from the spirit's gathered forms. Not warm or comforting, but cold and fierce as winter wind. He felt his heart steady, felt moisture return to his mouth, felt strength flow into his limbs, but he also felt them. Their presences settling into his consciousness like tenants moving into vacant rooms. He could feel Martha's grief, the phantom sensation of rope against his neck. He could feel Samuel's rage burning like eternal fire. He could feel young Peter's confusion. He could feel them all. A chorus of the dead singing in his blood. The power will fade some when they pull you out tomorrow. The ancient woman said, you'll be weak in body though stronger than you should be. But the sight will remain. You'll always see us now. And in times of need, when your purpose aligns with ours, we can lend you our strength again. But remember, Samuel warned, every time you draw on us, you come closer to joining us. Use this power too much, and you'll burn out your life like a candle in a windstorm. This is a weapon with limited charge. Use it wise. Through the night, they taught him. They showed him how to draw on their strength, how to move silently as a ghost, how to sense danger. They taught him the old signs and symbols, the ones that could offer protection or call down curses. As the second night ended, Isaiah felt different, stronger, but also hollowed out, as if part of his humanity had been scooped away to make room for the Spirit's presence. Tomorrow, Samuel said as the sky began to lighten, you'll be pulled from the ground. You'll collapse, appear near death. Let them think they've won. Rest, heal, watch, learn. And when the moment is right, he didn't finish. Isaiah understood perfectly. The debt had been accumulating for decades. Master Edmund Whitmore had inherited evil and multiplied it. Tomorrow Isaiah would begin the process of making him pay. Dawn of the third day broke with surprising coolness. A storm had passed through in the pre-dawn hours, and Isaiah had managed to lap at the muddy water like a dog, undignified but life-saving. Master Whitmore emerged from the house at 800 dressed for church. Sunday. He would want to conclude this business before heading into town to sit in the front pew and sing hymns about God's mercy. Webb and 2 other men approached with shovels cautiously, as one might approach a possibly dead animal. Still breathing? Whitmore asked. Webb crouched, studied Isaiah's face. Barely. He's gone, sir, broken. Look at his eyes. Ain't nothing there but the last sparks going out. It was a performance, and Isaiah played his part perfectly. He let his eyes roll back, let his head loll, let foam gather at the corners of his cracked lips. The spirits had taught him this, how to seem more damaged than he was. Dig him out, Whitmore ordered. Glim him up, give him water. Not too much. If he survives the day, we'll know God saw fit to teach him his lesson. They dug carefully, not out of kindness, but to avoid damaging the property. When they finally pulled him free, Isaiah collapsed immediately, a genuine response to muscles locked for 50 hours. He was carried to the slave quarters, placed on his sleeping mat. Rebecca appeared with water and cloths, her face carefully blank, though her hands trembled. Small sips. Your belly can't take more. Master Whitmore watched from the doorway, Thomas standing uncertainly at his side. 2 days in the earth, Whitmore said conversationally. And you survived. Stronger stock than I credited you for. But are you wiser, Isaiah? Have you learned your place? Isaiah forced himself to meet Whitmore's eyes. With great effort, he whispered, Yes, master, I learned. It wasn't a lie. He had learned. Just not the lesson Whitmore intended. Satisfaction crossed the master's face. Good. You'll rest today. Tomorrow back to the fields. Light work for a week while you regain your strength. He turned to leave, then paused. And Isaiah, never touch my son again. I don't care if he's being trampled by horses. You let him fall. His life is worth 1,000 of yours. Remember that. Yes, master. When they were gone, Rebecca leaned close. Old Moses wants to see you tonight. Says the spirits are thick around you like fog. Says you've been marked for something terrible or something great. Can't tell which yet. The day passed in a haze of recovery. His body, sustained by supernatural means through the burial, now demanded payment. Every muscle ached. But beneath the pain, he felt the spirit's strength supporting him, knitting him back together faster than should be possible. That night, Moses came. He was ancient, his face a map of wrinkles, but his eyes were sharp. They're with you now, Moses said without introduction. The ancestors, the wronged dead. I can see their light in you, cold and blue. My grandmother had the gift same as you. She told me stories of men and women who became vessels for justice. Some became heroes, some became monsters. The difference is thin as paper. What should I do? Moses settled himself on the floor. First you live. You get strong, you watch and you wait. Power like yours needs a plan. You go rushing in angry. You'll just get yourself and others killed. Master Edmund, he's evil but he ain't stupid. I want to kill him, Isaiah said quietly. I know. So do we all. Moses gestured around the quarters. But killing him, that's the easy part. Any fool with a knife can do murder. What you need to do is destroy him. Take everything he values, everything he's built on our backs. Make him know what it feels like to be powerless. Make him suffer like we've suffered. Isaiah felt the spirit's agreement, their approval. This was the path. Not quick revenge, but calculated destruction. How long? Moses smiled, though there was no joy in it. However long it takes. Could be months, could be years. But when it comes, boy, you make it count. You make it so complete that the Whitmore name becomes a curse. They talked deep into the night. Moses shared what he knew of the plantation's operations, the relationships, the tensions in the broader world. The country was fracturing over slavery. Change was coming. Slow but inevitable. But change ain't fast enough for the dead, Moses said. They need you to act now. Alone in the darkness afterward, Isaiah felt the spirits settling around him like a cloak. Samuel's presence was strongest. Patience, Samuel whispered. Let him have a few more months of peace. Let him think order is restored. And then we show him what monsters he's created. We make him beg for the mercy he never showed any of us. Isaiah closed his eyes and felt the future unfolding. He saw fire and blood, screams and justice, the mighty brought low, and he smiled. 3 months passed. Summer faded into autumn, and the cotton came in heavy. Isaiah returned to the fields, performing his work with mechanical efficiency while his mind planned and plotted. To the overseers he seemed properly broken. Eyes down, voice quiet, no more defiance. But those who knew how to look saw the truth. Rebecca noticed how Isaiah moved differently now, more deliberately, as if constantly aware of everything. Old Moses saw how the other enslaved people gravitated toward Isaiah, seeking his advice, trusting his judgment. The spirits had become Isaiah's constant companions. He learned to exist in two worlds, the physical realm where he picked cotton and said, "Yes, master," and the spirit realm where the dead walked freely and shared their secrets. Through their eyes, he saw everything. He saw Master Edmund's cruelty continue. A woman named Sarah, pregnant and exhausted, was whipped for working too slowly. Her baby was born dead 2 weeks later. The spirits added her child to their number, another debt to be paid. He saw Webb, the overseer, rape a girl of 16 named Clara in the barn, threatening to sell her family if she told. The spirits showed Isaiah where Webb slept, where he drank, the routes he walked. They catalogued every vulnerability. He saw Thomas, the master's son, struggling with conscience. The boy brought food to old slaves in secret, treated the children with unexpected kindness. But he also rode with his father on inspections, learning the business of bondage. Through it all, Isaiah watched and learned and planned. The spirits taught him more than surveillance. They taught him history. Samuel showed him the slave revolt in Haiti. Martha taught him about the Underground Railroad, free black communities, white abolitionists who risked everything. The world's bigger than this plantation. Daniel told him one night, "Master Edmund wants you to think this is everything. But it ain't. There are places where people like us walk free. You could go," Samuel said, "but you won't." Isaiah knew he wouldn't. The spirit's vengeance was personal, intimate. It had to be direct, unmistakable, devastating. In October, Master Whitmore announced he would travel to Savannah for business, leaving Thomas in charge. He'd be gone for a week. The house would be vulnerable. Not yet, Moses cautioned. You strike too soon and they'll hunt every slave in the county. You need the moment to be right, when he's most confident, most vulnerable. Isaiah reluctantly agreed, but the spirits grew restless. Samuel especially pushed for immediate revenge. How long must we wait? As long as it takes to do it right, Isaiah answered firmly. He was learning to control the spirits rather than be controlled by them. That month, something unexpected happened. Thomas approached Isaiah in the fields. "I need to speak with you tonight." By the old oak. That night, Isaiah found Thomas waiting, troubled. "My father is a monster," Thomas said without introduction. "I've known it for years, but I was too cowardly to admit it. What he did to you, it made me sick. I've been reading about abolition. This is wrong. All of it." Isaiah studied him carefully. Through the spirit's eyes, he could see Thomas's guilt and confusion, genuine and deep, but also the privilege, the comfort, the safety. "What do you want from me?" "I don't know. Maybe absolution. Maybe guidance. I'm supposed to inherit this place, but I don't want to be like him." "Then don't. Free your slaves. Sell the plantation. Go north." Thomas laughed bitterly. "You think it's that simple? My father would disown me. Society would shun us. Better a traitor to an evil race than complicit in that evil." They talked for over an hour. Thomas shared his fears and doubts. Isaiah listened, offering little comfort. When Thomas left, he made a promise. "When I inherit this place, and I will someday, I'll free you. All of you. I swear it." Isaiah didn't trust the promise. Promises made by masters to slaves were worth less than the breath used to speak them, but he filed the information away. As winter approached, Isaiah's plans crystallized. He would wait until the new year, until after the harvest, when Master Whitmore felt most secure. Then, on a carefully chosen night, Isaiah would act. The plan was ambitious, dangerous, likely to end in his death. But death held little fear for someone who walked daily with the dead. Patience. Moses kept counseling. But the spirits grew hungry. Every new atrocity made them push harder for action. "We've waited decades," Samuel snarled. "How much longer?" "Until it's perfect," Isaiah answered. "Until we can hurt him in every possible way. Anything less is failure." The spirits subsided, satisfied by the promise of total destruction. And Isaiah continued to watch, to learn, to prepare for the night when he would finally stop being property and become what Master Edmund Whitmore feared most, a man who refused to stay in his place. December brought cold winds and shortened days. The plantation settled into winter routine. Master Whitmore grew comfortable in the apparent peace, praising himself for having broken Isaiah's spirit so completely. He had no idea he was living under the eyes of the dead. Isaiah moved through the winter months like a ghost himself, his spirit-enhanced senses attuned to every detail. He memorized routines, catalogued weapons, noted which boards creaked and which doors were left unlocked. The spirits guided him, showing him things hidden from normal sight. The master keeps a journal, Martha revealed, in his study. Locked drawer. He writes everything, sales punishments, thoughts on individual slaves, evidence of all his crimes in his own hand. Isaiah filed this away. The journal would be important for testimony, for history, for making sure truth outlasted the man. Through the spirit's network, Isaiah learned that resistance was growing throughout the South. Small acts of defiance multiplied. Tools went missing. Equipment broke mysteriously. Work slowed. Some enslaved people were running. In mid-December, an incident accelerated Isaiah's timeline. A young man named Marcus talked back to Webb. The overseer responded with savage brutality, beating Marcus so badly he couldn't work for a week. When Master Whitmore learned of it, he sold Marcus to a trader heading for Mississippi, the cotton fields where slaves died in droves. Death sentence, Moses said quietly as they watched Marcus being loaded onto the wagon, chained and weeping. He won't last a year. Whitmore knows it. The spirits screamed for vengeance. Samuel's rage was physical pressure in Isaiah's skull, demanding immediate action. Isaiah nearly broke, nearly grabbed a knife and went for Whitmore's throat. But Moses gripped his arm hard. Not like this. Not in daylight. Not stupid. You want Marcus's suffering to mean something. Make your strike count. Make it so complete that no one ever forgets. Isaiah forced himself to breathe. January 20th. The anniversary of your death, he said to Samuel. 42 years to the day since Master John Whitmore buried you and left you to die. That's when we strike. Samuel's form solidified, his approval palpable. Partik, what's the plan? Over the following weeks, Isaiah refined every detail. The attack would come at night during the new moon, when darkness was absolute. He would need help. Rebecca agreed immediately, her hatred as strong as his. 2 others joined. Jacob, who'd lost his wife to Whitmore's violence, and Hannah, whose children had been sold. We know we'll probably die, Rebecca said. But we'll die human, fighting back. That matters. The spirits taught them tactics, how to move silently, how to avoid patrols. Martha revealed the house's layout. Daniel knew where the overseers slept. The ancient woman, Mama Oya, taught them old protections, herbs and symbols that might shield them. But the core was Isaiah himself. Empowered by the spirits, he would be the weapon that struck at Whitmore. The others would support, distract, create chaos. But Isaiah would face the master alone. You can't just kill him, Moses insisted. That's too quick. You need to break him first. Make him feel what we felt, the helplessness, the terror, the knowledge that you're powerless. Only then do you finish it. Thomas presented a complication. The young master had continued his secret meetings with Isaiah, growing bolder in his opposition to his father. He spoke of running away, of joining abolitionists. He's a coward looking for permission, Samuel said dismissively. But Isaiah saw potential. What if we give him the chance? What if we present him with a choice? Stand with us or stand with his father? The spirits debated this. Some wanted Thomas dead alongside his father. Others thought his survival could be useful. We'll see, Isaiah decided. If he proves himself, he lives. If not, he left the sentence unfinished. As January approached, Isaiah felt the weight of the coming confrontation. The spirits were with him, lending strength and courage, but the risk was enormous. Failure meant death and possibly reprisals against everyone in the quarters. It means everything, Mama Oya said, reading his doubts. It means showing them we're not property. It means writing our truth into the history they try to control. It means making them afraid. Never underestimate the power of fear. These people have ruled through terror for centuries. Time they learned what it feels like. The nights grew longer, colder. Isaiah could feel destiny converging on the 20th, could sense the spirit's anticipation building like storm pressure. Everything was ready. Plans made, allies recruited, weapons hidden, escape routes scouted. All that remained was the waiting, and the terrible certainty that come January 20th, the Whitmore plantation would be fundamentally changed. Blood would be shed, accounts settled, and the dead would finally have their voices heard. January 20th, 1842 dawned cold and gray. Master Whitmore spent the day reviewing accounts, planning the spring planting, conducting business as usual. He had no idea this was the last day he would ever feel safe. Isaiah worked in a state of supernatural calm. The spirits surrounded him like armor, their presence so strong that even people without the sight could sense something different. Old Moses nodded approvingly. Rebecca squeezed his hand briefly. Jacob and Hannah positioned themselves for the night's work. The plan was simple in outline, complex in execution. At midnight, when the house slept and the overseers were drunk or drowsy, they would move. Hannah would start a small fire in the equipment shed, enough to draw attention and create confusion. Jacob would disable the alarm bell. Rebecca would secure the routes in and out of the main house. And Isaiah, empowered by 16 spirits hungry for vengeance, would enter the master's bedroom and drag Edmund Whitmore into his personal hell. The hours crawled by. Isaiah lay on his mat, appearing to sleep while his mind raced. Around him the spirits gathered, more visible than ever. He could see them clearly: Samuel, Martha, Daniel, Esther, young Peter, Mama Oya, and all the others. Tonight? Samuel whispered, and the word carried 42 years of waiting. Midnight came. Isaiah rose silently, moving with speed and grace no normal human should possess. The spirit's power flowed through him, making him shadow, quick, ghost silent. He met the others at the predetermined location. Everyone clear on their roles? Isaiah asked quietly. Nods all around. Rebecca's hand trembled as she clutched the knife she'd stolen. Jacob's jaw was set with determination. Hannah's eyes held the fixed stare of someone who'd already made peace with death. Remember, we're not murderers. We're executioners. Whitmore dies because he's guilty of crimes against humanity. Webb dies for the same reason. But anyone who doesn't interfere we let live. We're not monsters. And Thomas? Rebecca asked. If he helps his father, he shares his fate. If he stands aside or helps us, he lives. His choice. They separated to their tasks. Isaiah moved toward the main house, spirits flowing around him like a tide. He could feel their anticipation, their hunger. 2 years of waiting was about to end. The back door was unlocked, just as Martha had said. He slipped inside, moving through the kitchen into the hallway. The house was dark except for a single lamp burning in Whitmore's study. Through the window, Isaiah saw him. The master, sitting at his desk, writing in his journal. Isaiah climbed the stairs, each step deliberate. At the top, he paused. To the left was Thomas's room. To the right, the master bedroom. Straight ahead, the study where Whitmore still sat oblivious. Isaiah pushed open the study door. Whitmore looked up, irritation flashing across his face. Then he saw who stood in his doorway, and the irritation became confusion, then alarm. Isaiah, what are you doing in my house? How did you? I came to show you something. Isaiah said, his voice calm despite the rage burning in his chest. Something you need to see before you die. Whitmore lunged for the pistol on his desk, but Isaiah moved faster, crossing the room in a blur. He grabbed Whitmore's wrist and twisted. The gun clattered to the floor. Up close, he could smell the master's sudden fear. You buried me, Isaiah said quietly. 2 days in the ground, barely alive. You remember that? You remember all the others you buried, all the ones you broke and killed and discarded. The slaves. Whitmore gasped. Someone will hear. Your slaves are busy, and no one's coming to save you. Isaiah forced Whitmore to his knees. But before we finish this, I want you to meet some people. He released the spirit's full presence. They materialized around the room, visible even to Whitmore's terrified eyes. Samuel stepped forward first. Remember me? Samuel asked. You were just a boy when your father buried me. But you watched, you learned. One by one, they came forward, Martha showing the rope marks. Daniel, his face still bearing the beating's marks, young Peter. Esther cradling her phantom child. Whitmore's mind broke, he screamed. Pure existential terror as he finally understood that his crimes had not gone unnoticed, that the dead remembered, that justice had been delayed but not denied. The door burst open. Thomas stood there, pistol in hand, face pale. For a frozen moment, the room held its breath. Father looked to son, desperate for salvation. Thomas's hand shook. His eyes traveled from his father to Isaiah to the assembled spirits. Understanding flooded his face. The pistol dropped. Do what you came to do, Thomas whispered. He deserves it. Whitmore screamed again, this time in betrayal. Isaiah ignored him. You can still leave.
This doesn't have to touch you. It already has,
Thomas said. I've been touched by it my whole life. I just finally have the courage to admit it. He looked at his father with something like pity. I'm glad you'll die knowing your son rejected everything you stood for. Isaiah turned back to Whitmore. The spirits have shown me everything you've done. Every crime, every cruelty, every life you destroyed. And now you don't get to choose anymore. What happened next was swift but not painless. Isaiah ensured that Whitmore felt everything, understood everything, experienced the helplessness he'd inflicted on so many. The spirits bore witness, their presence a chorus of validation. When it was done, Edmund Whitmore lay dead on his study floor, his face frozen in absolute terror. The spirits sighed collectively, finally able to rest. Outside, fire lit up the night. Not Hannah's controlled blaze, but something bigger, Webb's cabin, set alight by Jacob. Shouts echoed as the carefully ordered world of bondage began to collapse. The debt was paid. Justice delayed for decades had finally arrived. The chaos lasted until dawn. By the time the sun rose, Webb and 2 other overseers were dead. Several buildings had burned, and 43 formerly enslaved people stood in the yard, free but uncertain what came next. Thomas emerged from the house carrying his father's journals and a strong box of money. His face was grim but determined. I'm going to do what he should have done years ago, he announced to the assembled crowd. I'm freeing all of you. I'll write the papers, provide funds for your journey north. But you need to leave quickly. When news of this reaches the authorities, there will be malicious, slave catchers investigations. Why? Rebecca asked, suspicion heavy in her voice. Why help us now? Because I'm complicit in all of this. Because my comfort was built on your suffering. Because my father tried to make me into a monster, and the only way I can prove he failed is to act with honor now. He looked at Isaiah. You showed me something tonight. You showed me that slaves aren't property. They're people pushed to the absolute limit. You're not a monster. My father was. The spirits had grown quiet, their vengeance satisfied. Samuel appeared beside Isaiah one last time. Already beginning to fate's done, Samuel said. Wicked debt is paid. But you, Isaiah, you have to live with what you did. You have to carry us forward. Make sure the story doesn't die. I will. Isaiah promised. I'll testify. I'll tell everyone what happened here, what he did, why he deserved it. You'll be hunted, Mama Oya warned. The law won't see this as justice. They'll call it murder, rebellion. They'll want to make an example. Then they'll have to catch me first. Over the next hours, Thomas worked frantically writing papers of freedom for every enslaved person. He divided the money, gave each person enough to start a new life. He showed them maps, marked safe houses on the Underground Railroad route, gave them names of abolitionists who could help. What about you? Moses asked. You're destroying your family's legacy. The other planters will shun you. Let them. I'm going north as well. I'll testify to what my father was, what this whole system is. Maybe my voice will help the abolitionists. Maybe it won't. But I have to try. By noon, the former slaves began departing in small groups. Rebecca hugged Isaiah tightly. You gave us this, she said. You and the spirits. You showed us we don't have to accept what they say we are. That's worth everything. Moses departed last. You walking with us? Isaiah shook his head. I have one more thing to do. Then I'll follow. When everyone was gone, Isaiah and Thomas stood alone amid the ruins. Smoke still rose from the burned buildings. Blood stained the ground. The old order was utterly destroyed. I'm going to burn the main house, Isaiah said. Erase it all. Let it become a warning. This is what happens when you build an empire on suffering. I'll help, Thomas said. Together they carried lamp oil through the rooms, splashing it on furniture and drapes. Last, Isaiah retrieved Whitmore's journals, evidence of decades of atrocities. These go to the abolitionists, Isaiah said. Let the world read what he wrote. They set the fire as the sun reached its peak. Flames consumed the house quickly. Isaiah and Thomas watched from the property's edge as the symbol of Whitmore tyranny burned. The spirits appeared one final time, visible only to Isaiah. They stood in a line, watching with satisfaction. One by one they began to fade, truly fade this time, passing on to whatever waited beyond. Samuel was last. Thank you, Samuel said, for being our voice, our hands, our vengeance, for making them see us as human. The dead are leaving now, but the memory stays. Make sure it stays, Isaiah. Make sure they never forget. I won't forget. And I'll make sure the world doesn't either. Samuel smiled, and then he was gone. The weight Isaiah had carried for months lifted suddenly, leaving him feeling almost hollow, but also free. Truly free for the first time in his life. Where will you go? Thomas asked. North. I'll find the abolitionists, tell them everything. Then maybe further, Canada, where the slave catchers can't reach. I'll write it all down. The world needs to know what happened here. They parted ways at the property line. Thomas headed east toward the coast. Isaiah headed north, carrying the journals and his memories. A living testament to the cost of bondage and the price of justice. The Whitmore plantation burned through the night. By morning it was ash and ruin. The authorities came, investigated, found bodies and destruction, and no easy answers. The stories spread, whispered in slave quarters throughout the South, printed in abolitionist newspapers in the North. Some called it murder, proof that slaves were dangerous. But others saw it differently, as evidence that human beings pushed to the absolute limit would fight back. That justice denied through legal means would seek its own channels. Isaiah made it to Canada by March. He wrote his testimony, detailing everything, the burial, the spirits, the planning, the execution. Abolitionist newspapers published it, and it became one of the most widely read accounts of slave resistance. He never forgot the spirits. Every January 20th, he held a private remembrance, speaking their names: Samuel, Martha, Daniel, Esther, young Peter, Mama Oya, and all the others. He made sure they were remembered not just as victims but as active agents in their own liberation. Thomas kept his promise too. He testified, shared his father's journals, became a powerful voice in the movement to end slavery. The Whitmore name became exactly what the spirits had wanted: a cautionary tale about the inevitable consequences of systematic cruelty. The Civil War came 19 years later. When it did, Isaiah was there, too old to fight but young enough to witness. He saw slavery finally ended. He saw the formerly enslaved walk free. But he also saw the aftermath, the resistance to change, the violence that continued. He understood that the spirits had won their battle, but the war was far from over. On nights when the moon was dark and the veil between worlds grew thin, Isaiah thought he could feel them. Samuel and the others, watching, not vengeful anymore, but vigilant, making sure the living never forgot the cost of freedom or the price paid by those who fought for it. The story of the slave who was buried and survived to destroy his master became legend, but the core truth remained, that there are limits to what human beings will endure, that justice delayed is not justice denied, and that the dead never truly stop fighting. Isaiah died in 1889, an old man in a free country. His final words were simple. Remember them. Remember all of them. Remember that our freedom was paid for in blood and tears and righteous anger. And never let anyone tell you that we were less than human. They remembered, and the story lived on.